Worldwide movement, peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq hollering at you one more again. All right. Another beautiful day, folks, moving forward, rapidly approaching springtime, right? Man, thank you all for checking me out once again. I love you all. I truly appreciate you. Man, let's continue to surge powerfully forward, building this powerful, beautiful movement of people, this collage of smiles worldwide, because it's the worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. All right. I'm going to keep this one quick, folks, but important indeed. This is what is light, what is the darkness. All right. Slightly more esoteric or spiritually inclined subject matter on this one. But I'm still going to keep it rarely succinct. So we throw those terms around a lot, right? Particularly anyone who looks at a lot of videos on YouTube, you hear very often and see very often videos talking about, mentioning, referencing in some way the light and the dark, right? The clash between light and dark, light and darkness, right? So what is that really? You know, what is the light and what is the darkness? Quite honestly, you could attribute a lot of things to either side, right? You could frame it in your mind as good versus evil, which we often do, which is a very human 3D linear way of looking at it, but it's generally how we were taught to look at it, right? That's how we were taught to look at that duality of light and darkness. And it's not to say that that's not, valid, because there are many characteristics of darkness or individuals who may be immersed in darkness that we deem to be very evil or bad, right? Or certainly low vibrational frequency, but things that we would certainly frown upon, or in our estimation, put in a general category of not good, right? Of generally bad or evil. Okay, so that's understandable. I mean, there are behaviors that would certainly merit that. Just as there are behaviors that would merit someone to look on it as good or loving or beneficent, helpful, good-natured, certainly high vibrational frequency. We can attach different attributes to different behaviors or behavior sets, right? Or behavior patterns or actions. And we can look at it from that perspective. And that will give you at least a tool that you can use to discern between the two. Sure. You can do that, right? But you're sort of limited in what you actually can ascertain of what is really light and what is really darkness, right? Because again, when you look at it as good and evil, what you're doing is labeling polarization, right? You're looking at polar opposites and then you're just labeling them based on the attributes of the behavior sets that you've examined. Well, I would suggest that there are other ways that you can and maybe more pertinent ways that give you pertinent ways of defining or perspectives of which to examine the light and the darkness, right? And that is based on information, experience, wisdom, and overall spiritual maturity, right? Folks, often the darkness is reflective of ignorance, right? The darkness is reflective of a lacking, right? A lacking of the light. What is the light? The light is the information. Light is knowledge. Well, perhaps not. Knowledge is a whole nother subject. Perhaps I'll do it about knowledge. Let's say light is and can be also described as an accumulation of wisdom gained through experience, right? Hence, you go through a situation, even if you hear a tale, there's a point to the story, there's a moral to be learned from every situation, right? As you gain and sort of collect that, you gain in wisdom. All right. You gain in light. All right. And that's really more so well, here's what it does. It gives you an opportunity to study the light and the dark from a more objective perspective. If you look at it as the dark is ignorance to a certain degree, and that ignorance can be spiritually as well, right? For folks who are familiar with my videos, I have a video on energy vampires, right? And I talked on there how energy vampirism is an affliction that is due to individuals who do not have the sustaining connection, have the ability to get the spiritual sustenance from the creative source that others do, right? And with that depletion or that lack of, right, that we talked about a lack, there is a void or a deficiency, right, that is created in that, right? And that is what sort of drives that hunger that we would label vampirism, right? Vampirism is more about the hunger than it is the modality of satisfying the hunger. In vampires in movies, the modality for satisfying the hunger is blood. Maybe not always limited to movies, but that's another subject. And energetically, when we're talking about energy vampires or spiritual vampires, the modality for satisfying the hunger is low vibrational frequency energy, right? Or, spiritually, you can look at it as pain and suffering, right? Either way, these are deficiencies that are suffered because of a lack of connection to get the true sustenance for any spiritual being or any creation, in fact, which is from the creative source. When you don't have that connection, there is the potential for that deficiency. Okay, so deficiency of what, right? What are we constantly getting? When we have that connection with source, we're being fed the light. That light carries information, folks. Light is the greatest, as far as we know, modality for transferring information. One way that Verizon gained a big edge on, it's not even Comcast, the cable company, was fiber optics, because they're using a modality utilizing light to transfer the information, which is faster, more accurate. But you could take that as a consumer remark. But more so, I'm giving you an example of how light is the best modality for transferring information. So that's why I say, and hence in darkness, that's why I refer to it as ignorance. Well, lack of light, lack of that great modality for transferring information, then you lack, if you lack the light, then you lack that information, right? To some degree, there's something missing, right? Which is that deficiency. Just like spiritually, if you have something missing in terms of your connection with the creative source, that's your darkness, your deficiency, right? That's what you're missing, is that information that light gives you. And folks, everything is light. That's what we need to understand. Everything is that information, because that information is the coding that essentially tells reality what to be, right? You can break everything down to the photonic level. And at that point, it's just information, right? That's all we really are. Everything is information. And when you don't have that free-flowing connection with the creative source, there's a deficiency there. You're lacking primal information. And that deficiency is your darkness, right? So, and you can see that quite easily in people, right? In their behavior. People who behave in a way that is low vibrational frequency generally believe they're doing the right thing. They simply lack the information of how to handle it on a higher handle whatever situation it is they're in a higher vibrational frequency manner. So if you don't know any better, what do they say? Sociopaths, and I think it's sociopaths, essentially are non-empathetic, right? They completely lack empathy. They don't have the information within them to know what it feels like to put themselves in the shoes of the other person, to be empathetic. They lack that information. There's nothing there. When they see the suffering of another, they feel nothing. This is why you often have them, harming animals in their youth, because they're wondering why aren't they feeling anything, right? And there's their spirit still connected to the child is likely, probing what's missing there. And that's the beginning of their personal darkness. And they end up down a road that leads them to darker and darker places. And I don't have to get into descriptions of what their behavior turns into. So I sum all this up to say that, again, you very much can equate the light to information, right? And when we're talking on a spiritual level, the light that you get from your connection to the creative source is primal information, vital to you, right? As a creation. So folks who are lacking that to some degree are lacking that light. So you have darkness, and synonymously, they're lacking the information, which the light is synonymous for. So synonymously, they are in the dark, right? The darkness is then equated to lacking that information that they would get from the creative source. And again, don't take my word for it. Examine the behavior of individuals who you either come in contact with, you may observe even in a TV show or a book you read. Examine the behavior of the individual. And when you find quote unquote deplorable or bad or dark behavior, see if you don't find yourself asking, what is it that's missing in this individual? Clearly, there's something that's missing in them. They're not quite right. Well, that refers to something missing. There's a part of information in there that information could be their keys to feel what is empathy, right? But just try that exercise. Really, when you find examples of what you consider to be evil or dark behavior, ask yourself, what do you observe in this individual is missing, right? And whatever it is that they are missing, that is what they are ignorant of, hence their darkness. All right. So that's pretty much that, folks. Real quick on dark and light. This is a subject we likely will touch again on in the future. I actually went over and talked a little bit longer than I planned on, and I still have tons that I could offer on the subject. So we'll probably revisit this later. But that's it for now. Thank you so much. Please continue to help us all build this worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Please like, share, subscribe. Tell everybody you know. Tell some folks you don't know. And let's together continue to build this worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq, I'm out.